right, Mayor Arnold? I believe we have 6:30 in the chambers, and we have a quorum present, and the cable feed should be ready to go.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening. It's Tuesday, December 21st, 2021. I want to welcome you to our regular meeting of the Columbus, Wisconsin City Council on the shortest day and longest night of the year. Tonight, we are meeting by Zoom in order to protect ourselves and the city staff from the spread of COVID-19. The reports from the Columbia County Department of Health continue to indicate that we are in the very high range for COVID activity, and that's an increase from 3 months ago when we went back to meeting virtually. So Deputy Clerk Jane Foodie is with us tonight, and she will now take the roll.
Albright.
Present.
Arnold.
Here.
Clark. Not present. Gray.
Present.
Motive.
Present.
Reed.
Here.
And Rolke is excused.
Okay, so we have a quorum. Before we go on tonight to recite the Pledge of Allegiance, I want to thank Ryan Rostad for alerting me to the mistakes I made in previous meetings when I was leading the pledge. I switched the order of two of the phrases. Thank you, Ryan, and I will get it right tonight. So if you are able, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances, and I am now looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Alder Gray moves to approve the agenda.
3 seconds. It has been moved and seconded to that we approve tonight's agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. 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 Is anyone opposed? Okay. I believe that no one has signed up tonight to speak. Is that correct, Kyle? And Jane?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so we will move on then to the consent agenda. I am looking for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Alder Albright can second that.
Okay, is there any discussion? It has been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Now we'll move on to new business. The first item of business under new business is to consider and take action on Class B liquor and fermented malt beverage license for tea time. And this is pretty straightforward. We have attached all of the documents that they needed, and I am looking for a motion to approve this liquor license.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve the liquor license for tea time.
3 seconds.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve this liquor license. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Motion passes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to consider and take action on ordinance number 761-21, an ordinance to repeal and recreate section 34-1, establishing the aldermanic districts for the city of Columbus. As you probably know and remember, because we are in a year right after the census, we look at redistricting the city alder districts based on population growth, and in our case, Columbus gained, I think it was 500 people, and so we did alter the boundaries for the different alder districts. And what you had in your packet is an update of the block numbers located in each ward in the city of Columbus. And the ordinance that you're voting on tonight would update the block numbers in each ward. And Kyle, is there anything else you wanted to add to the discussion about updating this ordinance?
I'll just add that this doesn't do anything to actually change the districts. This just reflects the changes that were made. Also, that this should be happening every 10 years with the census, and we're updating something that was last updated in 1990. So it's overdue, and this will clear it up and make it easier for the next go-round.
We're only 20 years behind, so we're catching up tonight. So I am looking for a motion on this ordinance.
Alder Modic will make a motion to approve ordinance 761-21.
Alder Albright can second that.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we approve this ordinance. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is anyone opposed? Okay, so this motion also passes. The next item is to consider and take action on claims in the amount of $237,050.38. And those are all in your packet. I guess I am looking for a motion to approve these claims.
Alder Albright can make a motion to approve these claims for the amount read.
Alder Modic will second.
So it has been moved and seconded that we approve the claims in the amount of $237,050.38. We will do a roll call on this, please, Jane.
Gray.
Aye.
Moda,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Albright.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Great. So the next item on the agenda for tonight's regular meeting is a report of the city officers. So I will turn it over to City Administrator Kyle Ellison.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Just a few quick items. Tax collection for property taxes is obviously in full swing. So far, we've collected around 17% of the overall tax roll. So there's still a lot of payments yet to be processed, but I wanted to remind people of the multiple ways they can pay their taxes. They can obviously come into City Hall and visit us here during our normal business hours. They can also drop the payments in the secure drop box located at the front door of City Hall. They can also go to Farmers and Merchants Union Bank here in Columbus and make the payments. They can also pay online through the city website at the tab that says Pay Taxes Now. So several options, and we have some time yet to collect it and to make the payments, but multiple options for those who want to either visit us or do it remotely. And similarly with kind of the end of the year coming, we have the Christmas and New Year's holiday approaching pretty rapidly. And just a reminder that City Hall will be closed the next 2 Fridays. So Friday, December 24th and Friday, December 31st, City Hall will be closed for business. So just wanted to remind people of that as they make their final plans to maybe pay property taxes right before the end of the year. And that's all I had.
Okay, thank you. So I guess I was wondering if we were going to be open that Monday after Christmas and the Monday after New Year's Day, and it sounds like everything will be open that day. Okay, so thanks for clarifying that. Well, I did miss our first December meeting, and I didn't have a chance then to congratulate the chamber and the Columbus businesses for a really wonderful small business Saturday, so I want to do that now. And also, I understand that the Columbus Holiday Parade was well attended and very entertaining. It's exciting to see the new businesses open up downtown, and as well as the many fine establishments that we've had in Columbus for decades. It's also been a lot of fun to go around town and see all the holiday decorations. So if you haven't had a chance to do that, some people are really doing a bang-up job this year. And I know there's a contest, and so that's been a lot of fun too. Last Wednesday, we had 60-degree weather, and then we had a huge storm that actually knocked a tree down in our yard. It fell on our neighbor's house, but only the tippy-top branches, so there was no damage. But my husband got out there with the chainsaw, and he called the Department of Public Works, and they told him that they are extending their hours so that people can drop off yard waste because of all the stuff that came down during the storm. And I'm not exactly sure, I'm sorry, I don't exactly know what the hours are, but I know they are going to be open, I believe, at least till the end of this week. Kyle, maybe you have information, or maybe it's Jerry?
Jerry is on. Jerry,
Yeah.
maybe you just want to unmute and let us know what the hours will be?
Yeah, regular hours, 7 a.m. to 3:30 would be the normal hours. We're keeping the gates open until dark. And then we are also doing a collection for the city. We've been out the last 2 days for anybody that didn't call down here and just happened to bring it out to the curb. I do have a crew running through the city and doing a special collection just for the storm damage also, so
Great.
both avenues are provided.
Thank you very much, Jerry. I did see some workers out today, and that's good to know, and I really appreciate you doing that. Also, I want to note that the first listening session for the proposed stormwater utility was held last week at the Senior Center, and we are scheduled to hold another one in January. I believe it's January 24th. Is that right, Kyle, the 24th?
I believe it should be January 25th, I believe.
Oh, it's the 25th. It's a Tuesday. Yep, sorry. And we are hoping to hold it in the pavilion, and we are also hoping to have a microphone available for this listening session, because I know some of the attendees at the one at the Senior Center were a bit frustrated because they couldn't always hear what the speakers were saying. So I appreciate Kyle is working on taking care of that for us. And I encourage anybody to attend that listening session. Again, it's on that Tuesday, the 25th, and express their opinions, pros or cons, or just give us information about how they view the listening session. We really want to hear from as many people as we can. Finally, we're approaching the end of 2021, and I just want to take a minute to thank everyone who works for the city for all the hard work you have put in during another challenging year. And I want you to know that we really appreciate your efforts and everything that you do to help keep Columbus running smoothly. So thank you very much. And I hope everyone has a great holiday, and I will see you again next year. Okay, and now I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Alder Gray moves to adjourn.
Alder Moda will second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adjourn. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, so we are now adjourned. We will go.
Thank you. And since that was such a quick meeting, typically I would like to just move right into committee of the whole, but today was crazy. I just got home and I lost my wallet at the gas station, and it is unfortunately not found by the gas station. So I have to, all of my credit cards I was able to cancel on my phone, but my bank card I have to make a quick phone call. So if we could take a 5-minute break so I could call the bank and cancel that, I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right.
that, everyone. Let's see here. We have, it looks like everybody's still here. All right, so I have 6:51 p.m. I'd like to call to order the Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole. This meeting was properly noticed. With that, could you please take the roll call?
Arnold,
Here?
Gray,
Present.
Motive,
Present.
Reed,
Here.
Wilkie is excused, and Albright.
Here.
Roll has been taken.
Thank you. As I mentioned, this meeting was properly noticed. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda? Or, well, there's one alteration. It's been requested to move item number 7 up to item number 6. So moving the rezoning before the stormwater. So if that's okay with council, I'd take a motion to revise, to approve the agenda with the revision.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve the agenda with the noted revision of exchanging items 6 and 7.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Seeing none, agenda is approved. Next up is citizen comments, and I believe we do not have anyone signed up for citizen comments. Is that correct? Perfect. Moving on, item number 5 is department reports. In your packet, you'll see reports from the DPW, Fire Department, Library, Lifestar, the Police Department, and the Treasurer. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on any of those? Seeing none, let's move on to previous item number 7, current item number 6, the zoning code amendment. Matt, would you like to kick that off for us?
Yes, I would. So, council may remember that earlier this year, the council approved a zoning map amendment for parcel 6 and parcel 7 in Columbus Commerce Center. Subsequently, working through some issues on the site and looking at 114.14 of our zoning code, the applicant for that rezoning has also applied for a zoning text amendment to 114.14. Essentially, the way 114.14 is currently written, to basically have more than one principal building on one lot of record would be essentially go through a PUD. And there is an exemption for commercial buildings, but there isn't for multifamily. And the applicant has submitted a zoning text amendment to that. So to change it so multifamily also would have that exclusion that could be approved by Plan Commission. The Plan Commission reviewed this on December 9th and then also on December 16th. Had a lot of discussion. Initially, Plan Commission had some concerns with, there wasn't much in the ordinance or proposed ordinance about the procedure, what needs to be submitted and reviewed, and then also some more detail about setbacks. So this ended up going to Plan Commission on December 16th. What you see in your packet, the draft ordinance, that was recommended for approval by Plan Commission. The city attorney has reviewed the draft ordinance and he's prepared it. So really at this point, that's kind of the proposal in a nutshell. I'm here for any questions. Also, we have the applicant available for any questions that you may have as well.
Thank you, Matt. Did anyone have any questions or comments off the bat? Trina, go ahead.
Hi, I'm still confused. What would be the standard procedure for applying for multi-residential units. It just seems so strange that we're looking to change an ordinance itself for an individual.
Well, this is not, once you change the ordinance, all individuals for multifamily project or properties would be able to apply for the same provision under 11414. So it wouldn't necessarily be specific for this project. Obviously, this project could apply under that provision, but they'd still have to get approval from Plan Commission.
So again, is there a more standard procedure that would usually be undertaken in this situation?
I guess I don't know what you mean by standard procedure.
May I?
Please.
Thank you.
I think what this ordinance actually does is creates a more standard procedure. The way the ordinance reads now is that the only way you could have two principal buildings on a structure is by doing a planned unit development project, which is possible to do under any zoning district, but is a rather cumbersome process, and it involves two separate and lengthy steps. And I think that's part of the driving force for this proposed change, because what is being proposed to do now is, instead of going through that cumbersome PUD process, it's going to be a more streamlined application, so that there is basically the equivalent of a site plan being presented to the Plan Commission for review, and that is basically the application. Will be a site plan with all of the bells and whistles that are attached and required by the code for that. That will be basically the application now.
Thank you for clearing that up, Attorney Johnson. So I'm mostly in favor for this because I think that ordinance needs to be revised anyway. My only potential qualm is it says that it's at the sole discretion of the Plan Commission.
Thank you.
So does that mean it would, they would decide and it would not come before council?
That's correct. And right now, 11414 gives Plan Commission the power to approve sites with more than one principal building for non-residential properties. So for the time being, that's how we left the ordinance, but I probably should have brought it up for discussion earlier, that I think that's something that council could change. And I as staff, I think that it probably makes sense to have council maybe review it as well, but.
Yeah, I would be in favor of moving this forward with adding the language or changing it somehow so that it would also be approved by council after the Plan Commission. Other than that, I'm 100% for it. I think it's a good idea and it should be revised to make things a lot more streamlined and to have a more solid policy moving forward. Go ahead, Trina.
I'm essentially in agreement. I definitely want to see a small but very important language change to also have council be required to give a look and a nod. I don't want to give, this much planning power away.
Agreed, and I think that's prudent. I think this will help us in the future, especially with other potential developments, to make it faster so that they don't have to go PDU. It makes sense to do this. I don't think a single entity should have the power to make decisions of that nature. How's the rest of council feel on this? Go ahead, Shelley.
I'm all for making stuff easier. That's why I didn't actually have any questions, because it seemed like it was a little bit more streamlined. So I think if it makes life easier for people going forward, it's definitely a positive.
Thank you. So would your feedback be to move forward with the ordinance as is, or to add in that the council would review it after the plan commission?
No, I have no problems with it coming to the council. I think that makes sense.
Okay, so just adding in that little bit of language
Yeah.
as well. Sarah?
I'm fine with that as well.
Perfect. And Mayor Arnold?
Yes, I think that's a very good proposal, having the council have the oversight. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. I think we have a consensus moving forward, just a real simple change on wording and good to go. Is that enough direction for staff?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Then, and thank you so much, Steve, for being here tonight. Fortunately, we didn't have any questions for you. I hope this was a good outcome for you as well. I think it's better for the city this way, having something in a better direction moving forward with not only your project, but future projects. Let's see here. So item number 8, now I'm skipping ahead because moving things around. Item number 7, the stormwater draft ordinance. Let's see here. To start that off, Kyle, would you like to?
Yes, thank you. So just a quick review. Obviously, we've been having the stormwater listing session. We had the first one of those. We've been talking about the ordinance for several months now. It continues to take shape, and I think we're kind of narrowing the focus down to more of the final details. What you have in front of you in the packet is some changes made by the city attorney that helps clarify some of the terms, cleaned up some of the language, helps identify kind of the billing procedures and how the collection will be handled. So, we wanted to get that back in front of everyone to see if there's any questions or comments or concerns. We have the city engineer, I believe, still with us tonight on Zoom, and the city attorney as well. So we're here to answer any questions you might have or any comments about it, or if there's any discussion that the committee of the whole wants to have about the ordinance itself, this would be a great time.
Thank you, Kyle. Did anyone have any questions or anything? Sarah or Shelley, did you two have anything you wanted to add?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think the ordinance is in pretty good shape. I really appreciate everybody's efforts to get it to this point.
Thank you. All right, if there's no discussion, we are good moving that along as planned, so that's wonderful. And I do very much hope that this passes in the spring. I think it's the best for our city. Let's see here. So next up would be to review resolution authorizing representative for DNR lead service line funding for the Columbus Water and Light. Who do we have on? Michelle, did you want to add anything to that? No.
The only thing I'd like to say is that it's pretty boilerplate. It's just kind of a formality for somebody to be designated as somebody to answer questions. It's very much a team effort between all of the staff, whether it's filling out applications, reimbursements, checking the lead lateral, the actual projects on site. But they do ask that, the DNR does ask that we pick a specific contact person, and with Joe retiring, we felt that Dave Koenig would be the next person, and that would be the most appropriate for this. You did approve this similar last year for Joe to be that representative. So again, we're just asking to have that name changed going forward. The application is due by January, I believe it's 18th. So we do have that process already starting, and this is just one piece of it. So the commission did approve the recommendation for the council to approve this going forward. I didn't know if there was, I just wanted to know if there was any questions.
Thank you, Michelle. And Joe, I am seeing that you are on now. I didn't recognize you, but since Michelle doesn't have a picture up, I just saw the name. So I apologize. I didn't mean to skip you over. You are looking very festive for the season.
Thank you.
But did anyone on council have any questions or comments? Okay, perfect. Everybody's okay with moving this forward.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And thank you both, Joe and Michelle, for being here tonight. So next up is review temporary parking restrictions behind the Columbus Middle School. And we do have Chief Weiner here with us tonight. So if you'd like to kick that off for us, Chief.
Sure. Good evening. As part of kind of our ongoing parking situation involving school vehicles related to the school, I should say. Another area that has recently come to have some very identified issues is the South Main Street area. And I think I mentioned that in my previous memo to the council when we were addressing the West School Street, Dickinson Boulevard, those parking issues, that I felt that South Main Street was also a potential problem area. Well, now as the construction has accelerated, and I'm guessing there are many more workers on site, this is where they choose to park, because there's the parking lot's available for staff, and on the backside of the elementary school, there's that opening in the gate, so people can park on South Main Street, Fountain Street, any of those, and have a very short walk into the construction site. So, again, we did notice previously it was a problem. We did get a complaint that I believe was brought to Alder Gray's attention. So we looked into it more and monitored it, and it is truly a problem. Vehicles were parking on both sides of the street, making it almost difficult for one vehicle to get down at times. An ambulance would be questionable, and certainly a fire truck would not get through if it needed to. And that was South Main Street, and even some of the short distances up the side streets that include Fountain Street, Richmond Street, in that area. So what we did is I talked to Kyle about it, and we talked with Jerry from DPW. And what we did under Ordinance 9876, I have the authority to make temporary parking adjustments in the ordinance, as long as it's signed and we meet the requirements of the notice and those types of things. What we decided to, I've included a map as part of my packet that Jerry put together. I won't take the credit for that, with the highlighted red areas. And those areas we made no parking on one side of the street from 8 a.m. until 3 p.m. And what that has done since that went into effect a little over a week ago, it has really, I think, improved traffic's ability to get through the area. We have issued some citations. I know that one of the annoyances of some of the residents there, and one of them that may have prompted the complaint to Alder Gray, was being parked too close to the driveway, and someone had difficulty getting out of their own driveway. And we have identified several of those violations and have written some parking tickets since these signs went up. But in general, it's working. It's truly working. I think it was the right thing to do. The only couple of questions I have, and the direction I'm looking for from the council, is that how long do we want to do this? Do we want to go as far as making it permanent? I don't personally believe that's necessary. I think that when the construction project is over, late summer is supposed to be done prior to the fall school year. I think a vast majority, if not all of those vehicles, are going to disappear. So I would hate to see all the effort and energy into making it permanent when all those vehicles potentially disappear, and then the residents still have quasi-restricted parking in front of their residences during the day when there's nothing parked there. So My question, and maybe Paul Johnson would want to weigh in on this, is in the first sentence of 9876 parent B, it says that I can designate an area for any limited period of time. And I guess my question would be for Paul, would he consider 6 to 7 months a limited period of time? Otherwise, we may have to take some other action. But my short summary is that what we've done so far has been very effective. I think it's opened the area up. We're still going to have some complaints here or there from someone, you know, just trying to squeeze into that parking area so they don't have to walk an extra 30 feet, but yet sticking into somebody's driveway. And we are dealing with those issues. I've directed the officers to spend some extra attention there. So hopefully among the construction workers, you know, bad news travels fast, good news doesn't travel at all. Hopefully that'll be helpful to the situation.
Thank you so much, Chief. And I would like to thank both you and Jerry and Kyle for handling this so quickly. I was really impressed how fast you guys responded to everything and did everything. And I really do think it's for the better. My only question on whether we change anything or make it more permanent is, have you seen any other parking issues extended in other areas because of the restricted areas? Do we need to restrict any more areas, or do you think this is sufficient?
No, I've monitored pretty closely, almost daily, since we put the signs up, and the number of vehicles don't seem to grow. In summary, I don't think we have displaced or stretched out the problem into some areas without the sign that's not signed. I think everybody is pretty much parking in what we've already posted, and I don't think it would be necessary to post any further distances as we have.
Awesome. That's really good news. And I mean, 6, 7 months, any amount of time is temporary as long as it's not permanent. So I personally feel like we don't have to do anything more permanent or change anything. I think operating under the chief's authority to do this until the end of the construction is the best way to go. If Attorney Johnson or any of the rest of council has any other feedback, or...
I had one.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Question.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering why we started it at 8 instead of at 7:30, because 7:30 is when the traffic really picks up there and the kids are starting to get to school. So I didn't know if it made sense to back it up a half hour.
Have you seen that be an issue at all, Chief?
I really haven't, but I mean, it's certainly, you know, not something that's impossible to do. And then we'd have to let a grace period in because, you know, people are just going to recognize the no parking and think it's the original times in case somebody would park there in the short gap that we would move it back. But I don't think, I'll let Jerry speak because it'll be his staff, whether or not, I don't think that would take a whole lot of work. And I agree, that would help free up the area a little more during the school traffic. I was just thinking, you know, most of the construction workers probably arrive even before 7, I would guess. And it's something I never gave a thought to.
I suppose the construction workers arriving before 7 would anticipate to be there between 8 and 3 and wouldn't park there anyway, is my thought. So it probably wouldn't make a difference since they would know better than to park there since they would be there at 8.
Right, and not run out and move their car at 8 o'clock, right?
Right.
There are a few cars, though, that I've noticed do wait till the very last minute to move. I don't know if you've noticed that, Chief.
I have not seen that. Potentially, maybe it could be a resident there that doesn't get room in their driveway, and then moving it back, we're gonna make them have to move them earlier. I mean, I'm fine with whatever the direction of the council is. I think the change that we've made so far has had a really good impact. Yeah. And if we can tweak it a little bit, I'm totally fine with that. But again, I'm not going to speak for Jerry because it'll be his staff doing the legwork.
Yeah. My thought is the construction workers were a large portion of the problem. And they're not going to park there if they can't park there between 8 and 3. The residents being there, they might leave for work by 8 or so allowing them to stay parked there until they leave for work is in our constituents' best interest, I think. Any other thoughts, or Sarah, or Jerry?
If I may, I agree with that comment. That's one of the reasons we went to 8, was to try to make it more convenient for the residents. I think the workers, like Dennis said, all of the adjustments have really made that area much safer, and I think it's doing its job. The reason for 8 was to let the residents that don't leave quite so early not have to get up early, come out and move their car just to accommodate that. So we felt that 8 o'clock was a good happy medium in that morning time to accommodate that.
Okay.
I think it's working very well the way Dennis and everybody has kind of set it up, and it's also probably the most accommodating to the residents in the area.
It has absolutely helped. I can't thank you enough for getting it started and all your hard work and getting everything posted. And I know that residents have made note about how much better it is in that area.
So I guess, like I said, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Dennis.
I was just gonna say, all I'm looking for, and Jerry probably as well, is, do we need to do anything further? Do we leave it as is? I guess we're just looking for some direction.
I think, go ahead, Attorney Johnson.
Chief, what do your signs say?
Jerry would know the exact verbiage.
The signs say no parking, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., Monday through Friday. So we allow them to go back to normal on the weekend, again, accommodating the residents. I think my only question with the signs would be, once we start getting some snow on the ground, and I do eventually think we're going to get some snow, the temporary signs on the ground, we've placed in enough footage that they're readily visible. But once we get a snowbank or a windrow over there, they may not be that visible. So our inventory was pretty depleted. We do have the on-hands now to adjust to putting some signs up on posts, telephone poles, and some sign bases. I guess going back to what Dennis says, I think, leaving it, 6-7 months to the completion of the school year is fine. But the direction I think I want to know is, do we leave the temporary wood signs out all winter and take that chance? I am prepared to put out a little bit more temporary signs that we are more than capable of reusing, so it's not a waste of money. I think that would be beneficial work for us to do.
I think that the...
go ahead, Paul.
Go ahead. I think that the issue with what Chief was saying about the temporary nature, you're talking about having this being in force for 6 more months. And the signs as posted don't make any reference to temporary. And I don't think that's really necessary, but it almost seems like it would be a better end result if the council passed a motion at its next meeting to basically create a no parking zone here, just exactly as you've already got it set up, with an end date of June 15 or June 30th or June 1st or whatever date you wanted to pick, just because it'll make it a little, give it a little bit more meat. I don't think you have to change the signs then, and how you post it is fine. But it would probably, I think it would be a little bit better if it had council authority. What's been done so far is perfect, but putting the seal of approval on would probably make more sense to me.
Okay, would we have to do anything ordinance-wise to give council authority?
No, the first part of the ordinance that Chief referred to, the city council can do this by motion.
Okay, so that works for me. And going back to Jerry's comment, I think it would be wise for us to invest in some slightly more, we won't have them there permanently, but more permanent signs so that throughout the winter they are still visible. However many Jerry thinks, I'm not going to pretend that I know how many that is, but whatever is necessary, if we need some metal posts and realistic signs, we could potentially reuse them in the future. I don't think that's a bad investment. The wooden signs are probably not going to hold up all winter. What's council think about that? Go ahead, Shelley.
I agree, and I agree that we definitely should try and get something more permanent because people, once the sign is buried, they're gonna be like, oh, well, I don't see the sign anymore. And it's just being passive aggressive because they knew they couldn't park there, but they might get, whatever, passive aggressive and want to park there and see if they're gonna get in trouble. So.
Right. Yeah, I think some more solid signs for the winter makes sense.
Yep.
And they are potentially reusable. I don't think it's a bad thing to have on hand so that in the future, if we need them, DPW already has them. So, okay, perfect. So I don't know what the exact end date should be, but I am personally fine moving forward to our next regular meeting, a more concrete, council approved, no parking situation, exactly how it's laid out now. I would rely on staff, Jerry, Kyle, and Dennis to tell us what that date is. And I'm sure whatever you come up with by our next meeting is going to be good. It's till the end of construction, whatever that date is. Is everybody else okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Is that enough direction for everyone? Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you again, especially Jerry and Dennis for it. You responded so quickly and really made this happen. And it did make a massive impact. I really appreciate it.
Welcome.
You're welcome.
So next up is item number 10 to review the revised city fee schedule. And do we have Brandon? Oh, yep, there we go. Sorry. So our city treasurer is here to go over that for us.
Yeah, good evening. So as you saw in the memo, the fee schedule hasn't been revised since 2016. After I started here, I was asked to take a look into that and get that updated. So over the last month or two, I've been meeting with all the department heads and gave them what the old fee schedule looked like and, asked if they could bring me any changes. And overall, there were not too many significant changes, mostly smaller ones. Zoning had a couple changes to consolidate, make one fee instead of two for CSMs and annexations. Building permits, we obviously have a new contractor. They were pretty good at being able to match some of the most of the fees from our previous contractor. A few minor changes here and there. Clerk's office, I think, only had one change. That was tobacco cigarette licenses. And that was updated to more reflect the state guidance from the Department of Revenue. The biggest changes came from the Department of Public Works. There's a little bit higher charge now for Freon appliances that are dropped off due to what they are charged to dispose of them. There's a couple additions to make 4th of July run a little smoother, some barricades, garbage cans, little things like that. And then one change that I found out about after packet was sent out was snow removal fee. It was a $50 base charge plus a $15 administrative fee. But I was alerted that in December of 2019, there was council action taken to actually charge a base of $111.57 and an additional $1 per foot. So if that is the want of the council, we can add that back in over the $50 base that we had in this form. And that's the only things I can think of.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brandon. And I remember that. I'm sure Trina does too. That was actually, that number sounds super, super random and strange, but that took a lot of work to get to that number.
Sure.
Jerry, if that number still makes sense to you.
You know, I wanted to clarify there, that might have been a typo on our end. We did not mean to remove that 111. So I see it here in my original proposal, we meant to leave that the same. If we took that out, that's something that I'm fine with putting back in, at 111.57, I think it was.
Perfect. So, and that fee makes sense to you, Jerry? You think that's adequate?
Yes.
Okay, much more adequate than the 50. Go ahead, Trina.
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to remember, was it the 111 plus $1 over a certain amount, or was the dollar from the get-go? I mean, from the $1 if it's over a certain number of linear feet? Trying to remember.
Right, my recollection is it was the 111.57 for the base charge, and then for every like linear foot above, I can't remember what the base amount was, but for every linear foot above that, then they started getting a $1 charge.
Correct.
Thank you.
So is rest of council okay with go ahead, Shelley.
I have 3 questions. So the return check fee, it's listed at $25. Isn't that closer to 35 or 45 now from a bank? Or is just US Bank more expensive?
I believe our bank is still 25, but I can clarify.
Is that F&M?
Correct, yep.
Yeah, they might be. Okay, my other question is so there's no increases for the aquatic center at all? When was do we know the effective date of those prices?
I'm sorry, what was the second part of that question?
Do we know the effective date of the prices for the aquatic center? When we started charging whatever it was, $200 for family?
I don't, but these were the numbers that Amy Jo brought in.
They were actually pretty recent. I don't see Amy Jo online, but I remember talking about these the last time around. Trina probably does too. We did raise them slightly based on Amy Jo's, what she recommended. I do personally feel that they could still go up considerably, but
I agree. Right, that's up to Amy Jo. I just wanted to ask because the benchmark was 2016, and I just wanted to make sure that, there's been a change. And then I have one more question. As far as the recycling center, do we have a fee for non-residents, like landscaping companies that go and drop stuff off in the summertime or whatever?
Did you catch that, Jerry?
There is a tank fee for city residents only. I believe Alba's got a fee in there, but contractors, we've been advised that as long as they're doing work for City of Columbus residents, that they're allowed to use the center. I think we wanted to impose a contractor fee tag, a fee on that tag, but currently we do not have one.
Wow. I mean, and the reason I brought that up is because I know last year, and part of it was COVID, our chopping fee, the fee that we have to pay to have all that stuff chopped and removed or whatever, I guess it was really high. And I see that it looks like it's more reasonable this year, but I can't help but wonder how much of that is from commercial work. Yeah. And so that's my other thing is I think if they're doing that for free, I would say, I don't think charging them a fee would be unreasonable. I'm not saying a huge fee, but something extra.
I'm in agreement with that. I can make conversation with that and try to have something pushed forward before I see Trina's got it.
Oh, go ahead, Trina.
Oh, yeah, along those lines, I'm wondering if there might be a possibility of getting some type of, little residential tag for someone from town that's hired a contractor for them to hand the contractor when they're dropping off. Just throwing it out there.
Well, I think what Shelley's going about is the contractor is charging to dispose of these things, and then we're not charging them to dispose of them.
Exactly.
So I don't think passing it off would be the best. I think maybe Shelley is really onto something here, and Jerry seems to agree that there should probably be an additional fee there. Otherwise, they can take it back to their facility. The contractor should have something that they could do with it otherwise if they're charging their person. So that is definitely something to look into. I'm very happy you brought that up, Shelley. I never thought of that.
Yeah, I had some, you know, with my ankle, I had some work done, and when they left, they had like 10 bags of stuff, and I'm like, I wonder where they're going with that. And you're right. I mean, when you're doing a lot of, if you're doing a lot of landscaping, they do charge you for disposable. Whether it's $25 or $50, it might not be a huge dollar amount, but you know, it's still, if the customer is being charged, then they shouldn't be able to take it to the recycling center for free.
Ian?
I think there's even one step beyond that, and Shelley kind of hit on it, is it's not so much the issue of the contractors using the site. I believe I've had a conversation with Kyle on this, and I completely agree with them. We should allow the contractors to use that site, they're hauling it down for residents that are disabled, unable to get their brush down there. But the bigger issue is, we kind of know that there's contractors that are abusing it, that they're actually doing work outside the city, and they come in and they use this, and they're using it extensively. So we tossed around a few ideas of a punch card for contractors. I know Amy's working on some new software where maybe down at the recycling center there could be a scan barcode if we have a fee, and they're able to use it so many times. But it's not so much the contractors using it, it's the ones that are really abusing it, bringing in a lot of brush from their business work, and then saying it's, you know, work that they're doing for the residents, and it's a large amount of brush.
Yeah. Ian?
So, a question is, I've never actually utilized the center before. Is there someone there like checking IDs and things before they come in?
Yes.
So maybe part of them not utilizing it, they'll have to dictate what address it's coming from within the city?
So other municipalities have usually two ways they do it. Either they don't allow contractors vehicles at all, and they put it on the homeowners, or they utilize they do it by a tax parcel base. You have not only have to show ID that you're a Columbus resident, but then something to verify that you pay taxes in the city, you know, like a tax statement. And usually if you just provide ID that's already registered on that tag, if you will, that you get annually, that you're a resident. So a lot of municipalities don't allow contractors in at all because of this problem. And Shelley pointed it out, it's a very large expense to pick up that brush.
Oh, I'm sure it is. And I know, and I just happen to know that last year was a huge explosive amount of money that went out for that. And that's probably the most in a lot of years, and it got brought up, and it kind of starts you thinking, well, how much of that was contractor work? Because everybody was home and they were doing landscaping projects, and then, you know, all that stuff went into our recycling center.
Ian? It's probably hard to see me because I'm distant, Ian. This is Kyle.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
And so the counterpoint that we often run into here and in other communities is that the recycling center is something that is funded primarily by user fees. So there's the fees that we put on for garbage and recycling that primarily fund this. So for the residents that are funding the operations that have a contractor remove a tree or do landscaping, to then not allow them to have the contractor finish the job and haul the stuff away often causes some conflict with the people that are funding the operation. The rub there, I think, is that the contractors have a very easy way of abusing that system, because once it's off-site, you have no idea what does one tree look like in 5 trailers. It's pretty hard to tell. So I thought Trina's idea was kind of interesting, to have the residents approach us and say, look, I've got some work being done, 2 trees being removed, whatever whatever it is, and then have the resident pass that tag on so that we would know what to expect. You know, I think that might be an option here, but otherwise we're really not allowing people that are paying for the service to hire someone to do the service for them, I guess. It would force them to, you know, take all that by themselves, which is probably the reason why they had someone hired to do it anyways. So that's typically the difficulty that I've seen in the past.
So perhaps we only allow contractors to dump with or utilize the facility with approval from the homeowner. So maybe the homeowner has to contact the DPW ahead of time to say so-and-so will be, you know, bringing this to you. And my biggest thing is I don't want to give so if this contractor is working in Columbus and also Fall River, at the same time he has 2 jobs going on, I don't want to just give him a general card that he can take just because he's doing a Columbus resident. But he's also doing other things and he could bring other things. So I think it's best if it's basically exclude contractors except for a case-by-case basis, the homeowner can call DPW and say they will be bringing you this. Sarah, go ahead.
I don't see a lot of homeowners really wanting to take the time to do that. I'm wondering is there a way to charge by trailer load or truckload, or, you know, like you said, if they're coming in with 5 truckloads, can we charge whatever the fee is per truckload?
Well, that kind of goes back to Kyle's point, is that it's already paid by Columbus residents. So charging per truckload would be an additional, it could be seen as we are charging some residents more than, simply because they're utilizing a contractor. I think we need to figure out a way to set up so that a resident can give a contractor permission to bring their things there. Go ahead, Shelley.
So, I mean, there is a theory. We do have the tags. I mean, so I very easily could have handed my landscapers my tag so they could take it and dispose of it or whatever, and then they bring it back. I mean, so that would be one option, but I know Amy Jo wants to I think we want to get away from the tags and do some kind of scan. So the tag thing, transferring tags may not be a viable solution for long term.
Ian, another thing that I think Jerry's brought up in the past during these discussions is regardless of if it's being brought in by a local resident or it's a local contractor helping a local resident, you could also do sort of a annual volume, like, you know, 5 truckloads or however cubic yards or something, some kind of measurement to say 95% of all homeowners are going to fall within this box, and that would probably exclude a lot of the commercial people from bringing in a ton of extra stuff. I don't know what that number is, but that might be another option to say this buys you X number of visits or X number of yards of waste.
I think that's a prudent way to handle it, is establish a limit per resident, and whether it's delivered there by the resident or on their behalf by a contractor, it still goes under that resident. And any additional charge must be paid at dumping, not, you know, like, so if a contractor is bringing more than what the resident is allowed, it has to be paid for when they bring it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll work on getting some of that information to Kyle. We'll hammer something out. I completely agree with Kyle. We have to do everything we can to accommodate the residents that are paying the taxes for that, you know, that landscape center and all the fees that are there. Limiting the amount that we bring in might be an easy fix to it for the contractors rather than charging them, putting a cap on how much.
And just in, whether that's passing a card to put it under that resident or whatever it is to make it go under that resident. That makes sense. I think that was productive. What's everybody feel for that kind of direction? All right. Perhaps we'll have this on the committee of the whole as a separate issue so that we could maybe figure out the best way to go forward. Go ahead, Sarah.
I'd also like to hear more information from Amy Jo on the fees for the pool.
And I do believe those fees could be updated. And that's, I think that's a good idea. Perhaps that could be on our next committee of the whole as well.
Right. I completely agree. I mean, I'm not, obviously residents, they pay taxes and stuff. I just think that, depending on how long we've had those fees in place, and I'm only saying maybe $5 or whatever. I'm not saying a huge dollar amount, but just a little movement forward could help.
Yeah, I believe last time around we increased the non-resident more. I don't think we increased the resident really at all. Is that your recollection, Trina?
I thought we brought both of them up. I mean, it wasn't a big increase, it was little, but I'm pretty sure they were both brought up. I'm trying to think, it was like 2.5, 3 years, something like that.
Yeah, they were really, really low before. And they are still perhaps a bit low, in my opinion. And I remember thinking they were still low to what we were bringing, but that was the recommendation.
Yeah. So if we put it on the next committee of the whole, we could have Amy Jo confirm the dates and the amounts and
maybe bring forward her new recommendation to what it could be again. I think the big thing was that it wasn't raised for so long. Amy Jo was worried about raising it too much all at once. I think that's what the big thing was, why it's still so low, is it was really, really low and she didn't want to raise it too much at once.
Right, she didn't want to. Well, yeah.
That's all right. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of, pushback from families because it's such an important service for, folks with, some young and school-age kids. So it was just a lot of back and forth with the pool board trying to decide even to make the tiny increases.
Right. But that's definitely, I think that is an area that the city spends a lot of money on, is the pool. And try and recoup at least a little bit more of that isn't a bad idea. The fees are low. So I think that's a good conversation for the next committee of the whole with Amy Jo present. I think having her here would provide a lot more for us.
I agree. I think that makes sense. I mean, I think we should at least have the conversation if we don't do anything about it, right?
Right. And I appreciate you bringing up a few very good points on the fees, Shelley.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Trina.
Yeah, usually it's the pool board, making the initial decision on the fees, like the early springtime before the, flyer goes out. And then, getting council approval, but just so we're aware that it probably won't be something we would decide next time, but it'd be good to start the discussion.
Right. And having a new fee ahead of time is never bad. The more transparency we have and the more people know ahead of time, the better, in my opinion.
Yep, exactly.
So, sooner better than later.
Yep.
Awesome. Is that good direction for everyone? Do you need anything more from us, Kyle or Jerry or Brandon?
I think I'm good.
Okay, perfect. So we'll talk about getting that on the committee, both of those items on the committee of the whole next time around, because I think those are something that we should try and figure out. And I know that puts a bit more on you, Jerry, to try and figure out a good way to do that. I apologize for that, but I think that would be good for us and it could help alleviate you in other ways too, so.
I agree.
Perfect. So next up is item number 11, to review the Ethics Committee draft ordinance. Attorney Johnson, did you want to start us off with anything on that?
Sure. What you have in front of you is a draft of an ethics ordinance that I've used in a different community and then kind of changed a little bit to fit Columbus. And basically what this does is provide, I guess I'll call it an ethics code for elected and appointed officials. And there are two parts to this. The first part is creating an ethics committee to hear complaints from individuals or from basically from anybody that thinks that an appointed or elected official has violated the code of ethics as it sits. The ethics committee is the entire city council plus the mayor. And then if the alleged violation is against one of the sitting elected officials, that official would step out and a new person would be appointed to temporarily fill that position. Obviously, we can't have a person who's the complaint is leveled against be sitting on the committee that's making the decision. I mean, that's fairly basic, I would hope. But the committee is created, and if the committee ever is put into action, it would hear a complaint basically by having a public hearing. It would kind of be similar to a mini trial. I did not put a lot of procedural steps in the ordinance itself, but there is reference to following the due process rules, and it would basically be the complainant would come in and would state its case, and the person to whom the complaint is leveled against would have the opportunity to respond, and then the committee would make its decision. Before a complaint gets to the committee, though, the complaint will actually be filed with the city clerk, who will then turn it over to the city administrator and me to see if there's merit to the complaint in the first place. I think it's important that there be that extra layer in there so that, well, for lack of a, well, I'm not going to use that word. We don't want people abusing the system. So I think there needs to be that extra layer in there. And the couple of times that I've had to actually deal with a complaint along these lines, we were able to talk to the complainant, and one went forward because we wanted to make sure that what the complaint was alleging was actually ethics related. And the other one, the complainant realized during our conversation that, you know, they were mad, but there wasn't really anything that needed to be dealt with at such a high level. So we were able to kind of talk that complaint down. So that's kind of what the process is. The conflicts of interest and the ethics code itself is taken mostly out of the statute. There's not a lot of, I didn't add a whole much of anything except for what's already provided for in chapter 19 of the statute, and I just put that in there and kind of to codify it for your code and make it readily available so everybody can see it. And that's what you are looking at right now.
Thank you so much, Attorney Johnson. And so I do very much like the establishment of the Ethics Committee. I personally feel like that's probably the best way forward to as far as the Ethics Committee itself goes. And I mean, this is state code, so like this is basically what's here, I think, is very good. The only thing that I would like to see some additions is my only thing. I don't think we need to remove or alter anything that's existing here. I think for our modern climate, I would also like to see something more on like public relations and social media. That's my only thing that I think this lacks. Otherwise, I think everything that I see here is good. Sarah, you've had your hand up the whole time. Go ahead.
Two things. I agree that it does need a stronger social media and public presence kind of wording in there. I do have a question on page 6 under, I think it's 2.396, political activity, which is H.
Yep.
In the first paragraph, it talks about not being able to influence any referendum. So question is, if council approves a referendum being put forward, and there are council members who are tasked with doing outreach, can that be an exception?
The way it's worded, that would be difficult to establish. So that might be something. So this is, like Paul mentioned, this is taken from the state. It doesn't necessarily, it's not super inclusive of city in that way, of municipalities and how we operate. So that's a good point.
That's not true, Ian. We just formed a subcommittee for stormwater outreach.
No, what I'm saying is this, the way this is written isn't super inclusive of how municipalities operate, because this is taken for state operations.
Right.
So making it more appropriate to a municipality so that we can do things of that nature does make sense.
Sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying.
Yeah. And that's the only reason I spoke over you for a moment. I knew we were going to the same place. So I get what you're saying there. This does make it look like that would be inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
So
I'm sorry.
I actually have a problem with that section too, because it says that you can't solicit, receive, or give subscriptions, contributions for service. So, I mean, for any candidate or referendum position. So so how does that affect, people that want to just run for mayor or run for council, and that type of thing? Because I was thinking, it's like if somebody's on council and they know somebody that wants to run for another district. So are we saying they can't provide any kind of advice, or we can't help them at all, or I guess I'm just I'm not quite sure how strict or stringent the intent is.
Right, and this was honestly the section that I was going. Well, anyway, Paul, if you could start to field that.
Well, I'm as I'm listening, I'm looking through the statute to see, because there are actually two different parts that I pulled language from, and 1959 is the code of ethics for local officials. Local government officials, employees, and candidates. And the language that you are referring to, so far as I'm scrolling through here, does not appear in that statute or in that section of the statute. And it does appear in, as you said, Ian, it does appear in the state rules. So I think what I should do is I should try to go back and see, because admittedly I added some things from the state section into the local section because I thought that it was appropriate. But if they're not required, we can certainly pull them out, which is I think where you're going.
Yeah, I think that would be prudent, because both Shelley's and Sarah's comments, municipalities are different Like,
Yep.
we operate so much differently than any other government entity, and
Right.
and I don't want to completely strike the political activities section, but I think it needs a large revision to make it pertinent to a municipality.
And, you know, and maybe the wording, like on the referendum part, is that it's a council-approved referendum or council-approved committee or something like that.
I think the big part is this, under political activity, this is largely state. I think the big thing is that we need to remove that and put in something more municipal. Instead of trying to reword this, I think it needs to be changed out. I don't think we should focus on rewording that section.
Just pull it out altogether.
Right. And then, like 1959, we could add that in. So it's been a bit since I've read that, and I'm not as prepared. I've been a little crazy and busy lately. But I think adding that back in instead would make more sense.
Well, we could simply, I mean, you can shorten this up considerably if you wanted to, basically pull out,
I suppose we could we could entirely pull out political activity.
well, you can, because I don't think that's part of that's not part of 1959. And, well, I think probably the best way to handle it from here is to let me go back through and read 1959 and see which part of these are specifically referenced here, because they need to stay, obviously.
Right.
And then if the political activity is not there and we want to take it out, we certainly can. And the campaign contributions, that part needs to stay.
Right.
Because that's state law. But some of this we can make, and the honorary of fees and expenses part, that is state law, but not municipal, doesn't have to apply to municipal. So there is some of these that I could go back and forth and just say which ones we absolutely need to have and which ones we can toy with.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, this is totally our starting point. So yes. This is what Attorney Johnson started us with, and it's a great starting point. Aside from that, I think we need to, and I mean, that's more on council, I think, than on Attorney Johnson, is adding in more of our specific ethics standards, because that doesn't touch on it. And I think part of the core of this was establishing that. So I think that's something that council needs to establish. And add to it. We need to make those additions. Sarah.
I was going to say, Paul, I'm hoping we can leave in the political activity, which is H3, where it talks about not promising any kind of appointment. I think that needs to stay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it's basically H1 that you are concerned with.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Well, and H2.
Yeah, H2 too.
Yeah, so, and Sarah's got a good point. I mean, we don't really need people going around saying, well, so-and-so is running for this and they're going to put me on this, whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's prudent. I think the other big part of this discussion is what else do we want to hold ourselves to?
Yes.
Well, ourselves and all of our boards and committees and commissions. I think that's the other big part of this discussion. Like this, that's a matter of redefining it to a municipal level. And I'm sure Paul can handle that very well, but what we want in it. is the big discussion, I think.
I'd like to see discussion on reasonable etiquette during a meeting so that we do not, this group is fabulous, don't get me wrong on what I'm saying, but if other groups or other people come in and they get to be contentious, we need to follow more of a Robert's Rules of Order so that there is some politeness going on.
And that is actually established in ordinance.
Okay.
On how our meetings are conducted. Go ahead, Shelley.
So, and this is something that's in my code of ethics at work is, you know, if you're out in public, like at a bar or whatever, wearing City of Columbus attire and or, you know, being careful of how you act in public when you're in a social situation.
Right, and I think that's an important thing to be in our code of ethics is we are elected officials. We have to be aware all of the time. It's just like the fact that if I'm walking into any Columbus establishment, I always wear a mask. We require masks in city buildings. I always wear one no matter where I'm going to. I think that's just, you know, if we say that's what needs to happen in our buildings, I think we should do that in other buildings. Not that that specifically needs to be in our code of ethics. I think that just speaks to what you're saying is we have to be aware of our surroundings and, you know, conduct ourselves appropriately at all times. How that's worded and exactly how that is that's kind of up for discussion is how do we put things like that into it? What do we want written? So some of my big key points is we debate things, of course, in committee of the whole all the time. We do not always completely agree with each other. One of my big things that I would like to see in our code is once the council establishes a decision, we all are moving forward with that decision and we are no longer speaking ill of it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So we may not individually agree with the decision that was met, but as a council, that it was the decision and we need to move forward with it and we shouldn't be actively speaking against it anymore.
Mm-hmm. I'm comfortable with that idea.
Yeah, I think
I really am. It's just so, oh goodness, not authoritarian, but I don't want to be doing the same system as the school board had been doing. I really just don't want to start going down that route.
Yeah, I think once council reaches a decision, that is the decision and we need to move forward. And I think if any of us are out in public bad-mouthing or speaking against it, that's so counterproductive to anything happening because it won't change the outcome. It won't, you know, change the decision. It's only going to hurt what's moving forward. So I think having something in there is some sort of language that once a decision is met, we all publicly support moving forward. Go ahead, Mayor Arnold.
I was on the school board years ago, and, you know, our policy was that just exactly what you've said, Ian, that once we decided on something, the board supported it, even if individual board members didn't. And we spoke as one. That was kind of the way we put it. And I do remember back, you know, 5-6 years ago, hearing about city council members who would then go on social media and bash decisions that had been made by the rest of the council. And I thought, oh my God. And it created this very kind of divisive atmosphere. And I really would like to see us try to avoid that. And I think your suggestion is a really good one. So thank you for proposing that Trina.
Oh, for me, the divisiveness is democracy. It's the freedom of expression and free speech. I really don't want to see us going down this exact road.
So Trina, is your concern that if we ask people to support as a group, support a decision that the group has made, that interferes with free speech?
For me, it does. Not having the ability to comment on my own in a very public formats on my opinion, for me, that's a free speech issue.
Well, I think the way.
Let's let Attorney Johnson weigh in for a second.
Okay, wait.
I was just going to say, I agree with you both, but it's the threat of the retaliatory action by an ethics committee against what Trina might be saying is what the problem is. All going forward with a unified voice is a great policy and a great ideal to try to maintain, but at the same time, you can't put a damper on what somebody might say. I mean, we're not exactly talking about prior restraint, but that's what you're getting close to, is creating rules to prohibit speech, and that's not a good thing either. Right. So there's a fine line in there someplace.
Right. I think more what I'm saying is in a public capacity. So when we are acting as a public official, that we're not going against or speaking ill of the I don't know. It's hard to articulate exactly what I'm trying to get across, honestly. I don't want to constrain anyone's freedom of speech. That is definitely a thing, but we are also public officials and we also have to be cognizant of that. And I don't know. Go ahead, Shelley.
So I think that if people are in agreement on a particular subject, I don't think that's going to be something that you're going to be, that is actually really a concern, right? I mean, if we all vote yes on something, what's the likelihood of us going and complaining about it? Unless of course, there is a matter of fact that people can vote yes on something and then have a second thought, right? I mean, we're human, but I also think that I agree with Trina. That's a free speech thing, and it almost sounds like people are trying that the intent is to stifle somebody's opinion. Now, I'm not saying that it's okay for somebody to go out to Old Rock and sit here and complain and be nasty, and I think there's a certain amount of decorum that we can expect from our council, our coworkers, but I don't know if I would appreciate it, just because, we're all human and we all, we may agree, we may not agree. And providing we're expressing ourselves respectfully, I think that's fair.
Yeah, and it's a really tough gray area. My thought or intent behind that is it's so counterproductive. And I'm not talking about when we have the 6 of 6 agreement. I'm talking about when we have the 5 of 6 or the 4 of 6. And it's just so counterproductive for that one to go against and publicly speak out or, try to, because it's not going to change the outcome. It's not going to change anything except for damage. I don't know. That's more of an ethical, damage control in my mind, not something that would be an impeachable offense, so to say, or something that would stand before the ethics committee. That's more of something that would be in a generally accepted code of conduct, not something that you would come before the ethics committee for violating. Go ahead, Sarah.
Could we just make a statement that people must behave in a professional manner, both, during council meetings and out of council meetings, and just assume, well, assume's the wrong word, but
That's so vague, and the good and bad of being vague. Well, I could speak endlessly the positive and the pros and cons of being vague, but Attorney Johnson has something he wants to say on that.
Yeah, what Sarah just said is something that would be very appropriate for a code of conduct. But remember what this ordinance that we are talking about is intended to deal with egregious things that need to be penalized. That's what this is intended to do. Your ethics committee is intended to be a judge and jury over something that has crossed the line.
do we need two separate documents, Paul?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was a time, and I'll add this to my list and see if I can find it, but there was a code of conduct, and I think it was even before Ian and Trina's time, that was kicked around at the very beginning of Mayor Tome's term, I think. And it never got finalized, but there was one started somewhere along the way. I'll see if I can find it. But yes, you do need two different documents.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going. We need two separate things.
I drafted a code of conduct, I don't know, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and forwarded it to Kyle. Perhaps that's something Kyle could share with you, Attorney Johnson, to see if it fits.
Yeah, that would be fine, because chances of me finding what I'm thinking about are not high.
Kyle, do you still have that copy, or do you need me to resend it?
I believe I do have a copy somewhere. If I can't locate it electronically, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think where we're going is we need two separate things. We need a code of conduct, and we also need the ethics committee and what will be like strictly adhered to. The code of conduct is a code. It's something we should live by and adhere to with integrity, not necessarily something that we would sit before the ethics committee for violating, but something that we should personally take to heart and commit to with integrity. Go ahead, Mayor Arnold.
Well, I just want to say, I think Shelley kind of nailed it when she said, she used the word respectful. And I think that was kind of what I was getting at when I was concerned about, some of the divisiveness. I think it's fine, to, especially when you're having private conversations with people, to say you don't agree with the decision that the board has made or the council has made, as long as you do it in a respectful way. And what I think I reacted to was people going on social media and really being kind of nasty about decisions that their board or their council had made. And that's what I would like to see us try to get away from. But I think you're right. We need two different entities here, the code of conduct and which is separate from the ethics issue. So, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, maybe we need to word it as something when you are speaking publicly or something of that nature. So you can still exercise your freedom of speech and disagree with the decision, but when you're speaking publicly, that's not acceptable.
Okay.
Trina?
I'm the one that finds a governing body to be more trustworthy when there is noticeable space for disagreements. For me, that shows a higher level of, humanness.
And I agree completely, as long as the disagreement, like you and I are having right now, is is respectful. Because I totally get where you're coming from. I mean, I don't want to squash anybody, but I just want, I guess I'm just sort of tired of this atmosphere of, and people feeling like they can say whatever they want and get away with it. I'd like to see more civil disagreement. Maybe I'm getting old, folks. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think probably our best route is the separate code of conduct and then having this completely separate from. I would still like to see some portion of it. It's probably not going to have anything to do with speaking as one within this, because I agree with Trina and Shelley, like that is probably, in my mind, it makes sense, but speaking of it and discussing it, it is a little bit too authoritarian. I get that. I still think that it should belong in a code of conduct, that we should try to move forward as one, and we should try not to publicly deface one another or the direction of the city. But that could exist in a code of conduct completely separate from this. And I think that's probably the best place for it to live. But I do still think that we need something within this entity to address social media and things of that nature, because that's the world we live in. So it doesn't need to be as extreme as what I mentioned before, but I think something needs to exist in that realm. Shelley, you had your hand up. Did you still have?
Oh, no, what I was going to say is, so if I disagree with somebody, I usually say, I'm sorry, but I disagree with your, your opinion. So, I mean, I think I was just going to go on what we were still talking about. I think people get what they give. And so if you're being respectful to somebody, and I'm not talking about us, I'm just talking about between residents or whatever. I think you are respectful when you're discussing stuff with residents. I think it is important.
Oh, for sure. It's very important.
Right.
And I think that's where a code of conduct lies in a lot of that, because it would be hard to try and that could be a little too authoritarian to put it in this. But something dealing with the public and how we portray ourselves publicly on social media and elsewhere, I think needs to exist in this. And that's the thing that's still lacking in it, in my opinion. Go ahead, Trina.
Oh, I know, just going along for the social media part. The main thing I would want to add in would be for, closed session items to be, absolute non-discussable for, spraying out onto social media.
That's in any form, social media or otherwise. I think we should probably have something in here specifically for confidential information and closed session that's not addressed. And I think that does need to be addressed. That's a good point to add into it. And I mean, when something like that happens, it would be up to the ethics committee to investigate and figure out how it happened or why it happened and where it leaked. So that's a good point. Yeah, I think those are two areas we need to add. Anybody else have? And I think we also need the separate code of conduct. So if Sarah's already worked on something like that, maybe we could have that as a separate line item. I think we need to probably differentiate that from the two better in the future is, so that we have a separate code of conduct that isn't necessarily going into the ethics committee. Go ahead, Shelley.
I'd like to make a recommendation. So when Sarah and I and Mary, we got elected, we had our introduction to City Hall that night. And I was sitting there thinking there was a lot of stuff that probably we could have talked about. And I feel like going forward, if we're going to do that, that would be a good place to start with, to go.
Oh.
And so with that, it got, even with the little bit that we went through with the departments, I was thinking that either we do one going forward, you do one whole day, like on a Saturday, or 2 days. Because one day we could do because the departments were there, and that's important to hear from the departments, but that's not really the business side of it, right? I mean, so I think if we're going to do this, we should do it right, and the code of conduct and or this ethics thing should be presented during that orientation.
Oh, 1000%, it definitely would be, and it should be and would be. And we
Right.
just don't, it doesn't exist yet, so it wasn't.
Right.
And that's part of the problem, is it didn't exist when any of us were elected.
Right.
So it needs to exist, and that's what we're here for, is create it. So future alders have it.
Yep.
I think we're all basically in agreement. I think the hard part is going to be ironing out exactly the wording of what needs to be added. I think the code of conduct is something that we can come up with. Sarah said she already had a start. So that's a good start. I think our next meeting, we should talk about that separately from the ethics committee and have a discussion about what we want in our code of conduct. Because as Trina and Shelley both pointed out, it is best served separately.
Yeah.
Perfect. Is any other discussion or thoughts on that? Good direction for staff? See nodding heads. Okay, perfect.
So will this come back to the next COW then, or is it going to go to council? Because I would be more comfortable.
The next committee of the whole. I think this still needs more direct discussion before it goes to the regular meeting.
Yeah, because I was doing some research and I was finding stuff that I thought made sense too. So I would like to have the opportunity to look some more stuff up and kind of research.
To potentially add to, and no, that makes sense. And I think this will most likely be on the next couple of cows, not just only the next cow. This needs more discussion. It's not ready for regular for some time, in my opinion. And we want to do it right.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Next up is to review the crew leader position description. Let's see, who do we have? Did you want to talk about that, Kyle or Jerry?
Yeah, I'll talk about it quickly. So in the package, you have the marked up version, as well as the clean draft version of the revisions implemented. There's some clarification of duties, cleaning up some terms. There was a slight tweak to the educational requirements, reducing that just a little bit, but also adding some experience requirements to broaden the pool of applicants that would be eligible. So it's based on the current position description and just a few tweaks to it, but we're looking for any changes that you'd like to it to hear about them this evening. And then if you're comfortable with where it is now, to give us approval to advertise with the draft position description that you have in front of you, just to keep the process moving.
Thank you so much, Kyle. I'm personally comfortable with it. Did anyone have any thoughts or concerns? Anything to add, Jerry? Or
No, I gave my
it's your needs.
Yeah, I gave my input to Kyle, and he did a wonderful job of revising it.
Perfect. So it looks like we have an agreement to move forward with the crew leader description. Awesome. Then next up is to review the RFP for salary study and structural evaluation. If you'd like to head that off for us, Kyle.
Sure, thank you. So again, this is sort of the continuation of some of the items that were identified by public administration associates during their study, where they, identified some areas where the city could get better. And so this request for proposals, and this is sort of a draft for discussion. It's got some dates set right now, but obviously obviously, as discussion happens, and if we don't approve it in the coming meetings, we'll bump that back appropriately. But essentially, some of the activities that we're trying to capture right now are the compensation concerns that were identified in there. And I think we see that in Public Works. I think we see that in Water and Light. We see that in our police department. We see it sort of top to bottom. And the great resignation that we're seeing kind of throughout many industries, including local government, is really moving that pretty rapidly. And so this would be an opportune time to really get a handle on that. So that's one component here. Also looking at ways that the city could improve the workflow, workload, detail any opportunities that they might find to achieve some efficiencies for, just greater effectiveness, I think, whether that's with internal customers or external customers, or hopefully both. So in the draft document that you have, we're trying to strike that balance. I'll note right off the bat that there are no departments excluded from this assessment currently, but I think if we narrowed it slightly, it would make for probably a less expensive study and probably a more effective one as well. Some departments just, I think, aren't really positioned right now, and I'm just thinking of things like the police department. Are we going to combine the police department or shift police duties to other departments? Probably not right now. So I think the library or the police department, there may be departments that could be removed from the assessment. I think when we look at compensation, there may be areas that we choose to focus more, but I do think broadly across departments, there's probably a need at least one time to get a good benchmark of where we are compensation-wise in a whole variety of areas, as well as try to identify a way that we can maintain more of a current state going forward so that we're not having to recreate this time after time or go out for more resources. So there could also be a good argument for we're trying to do two things with one RFP. There might be some wisdom to separating them. You will likely pay more overall. And my thought is that actually, depending on the firm that does the study and how they do that, they're actually going to touch the same information during both processes, was my thought. So there might be some efficiency to looking at the positions we have and what they do. At the same time, they're thinking of compensation as well as how we're doing what we're doing kind of collectively. So this was a starting point, and I think open to discussion with the council to see where you'd like to go from here, or what changes or what further discussion you'd like us to have internally to keep moving this forward.
Thank you so much, Kyle. And I agree, there are, as far as structurally going, there are definitely some entities that we could exclude. I think compensation-wise, it's citywide that we need to go for. But I would personally really like to see this all happen at once and in conjunction with each other. Because especially with any potential restructuring, part of the compensation study, I want to be able to see, so if we are combining things or moving things around, what would that new role need to be compensated at? Or what would these combined efforts, what's that compensation look like? Not just what our current structure's compensation is, and then have a separate study of how we should restructure ourselves, but now we have this old study of compensation that is no longer viable for what we may want to restructure to. So that, in my mind, doesn't make sense. I think it has to happen in conjunction with each other. But as far as structuring goes, library, police department, fire department, none of those need to be included. Trina, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it makes almost no sense to look at compensation without having a really good idea of the different roles personnel are doing. Otherwise, we'll have trouble comparing what is actually the same role but different titles in different towns.
Yeah, exactly. Both studies have to happen at once. It's more cost effective and it's just logical. Anyone, so as far as, so we'll need to provide some direction. I personally think that there are some, as far as the structural study goes, we should exclude some departments. Off the top of my head, the fire department, the police department, the library, those are the only ones on the top of my head. Anything, what's the rest of council thinking about that?
I agree with that.
Yep.
Do we need to think about the needs of the stormwater utility? Do we need to somehow incorporate that if that goes through?
I think it would be wise, even though it's not going to have, your traditional staffing structure, it will operate as a department. And I think this would be a good time to, sort of pre-plan for how that would be grouped together with, is it going to be standalone or should it be paired with another group that's already doing similar functions?
Right. It's a utility. In my mind, it would be easier to put it with the rest of our utilities. But that's, something for a study and professionals to tell us. But yeah, for sure, that should be part of the study. Kyle, other than DPW, fire department, library, are there any other departments that you think should be excluded from the structural study? Or that we may benefit or should consider excluding?
The only one, I'm just thinking of the org chart. I'm not sure if it's, your traditional department, but emergency management, I think I would lump in the same kind of category. But otherwise, when I think of recreation and the senior center, I still think I would like to include them at this time, just to see, to either, validate that they really should exist in their current form, or if there's ways that maybe they can be paired together with one group or another to actually help the services they provide maybe more efficiently or expand.
Yeah, I agree completely. And thank you for bringing up the emergency. Not top of mind for me, so thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts on? Go ahead, Shelley.
So as far as administrative, we have the clerk's office, we have the treasurer, we have, those are, and I know technically we have HR, but that's not really on the list, right? So when they do this, are they gonna look, I'm just trying to understand, are they gonna look at their current job description and see if what is listed on that job description makes sense for their position? If you and I,
yeah, that'd be part of it. That and see if it could be shared with other departments. Okay. Especially in the administrative section. A lot of our departments have some administrative work within them. Especially like the water and light has their own administration. When you look at accounting and things, there's a lot of separate entities.
Right.
So would it make sense to combine them? That would definitely be part of the study.
Right. Well, because the treasurer, and media, and I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, Matt. So those three employees they're three departments, but they're the only people in the departments, right? Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and oftentimes what I see communities moving towards, and this is just an observation, I'm not saying this is the way anything's going. I think you'd like the study to kind of bear itself out. But I see people organizing instead of clerk's office, treasurer's office, that sometimes they're going more under the administrative services umbrella, because there is such a broad spectrum of services we provide, and that, if you went that direction, likely HR would be part of that umbrella, where currently it's kind of off as a subset of the administrator and doesn't really have a home of its own.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, so that'd all be definitely part of the study. And those are, key points of I think there's a lot of microcosms of what we could each individually see and think that could be done perhaps better, combined better. But none of us are encompassing enough to make these decisions or think about it on it. So that's where I think having this study done so inclusively is really important. And I'm so happy to see council being in support of it, because I think it's a long time coming for our city. I think there's a lot of efficiencies that could be gained. And this isn't going to carry a small price tag. That is definitely something that we have to be cognizant of. We are going to be spending money, but I think it's going to save us money in the long run. I believe that, and that's why I am very supportive of moving this forward. I really think there are some efficiencies that could be gained.
I agree with that 100%.
Well, and it can be team building too, because the reason why I brought that up, media and Matt's job, they're independent. But maybe if they were together and you put the economic guy with the media guy and they work together to make Columbus, on projects to make Columbus better for tourism or whatever, I think that it's more teamwork oriented, I think sometimes when people are independent, they can be siloed. They're in their own little world.
It's not a secret that the culture within the city needs to change, right? I mean, this is all encompassing to everything we've been talking about tonight, everything from a code of conduct to doing this and seeing how we can create efficiencies for the taxpayers. It's also going to be a team builder. You're right, Shelley. And it's something that I think we're going to see the effects of for a long time.
Right. People work better if they're working towards a shared goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing we have to be cognizant of is this is an expense. And during our terms, it is going to likely be just an expense. This is a long-term gain.
Yep.
So that is something that we have to realize and understand. We are spending money right now. I believe all of us fully believe that it will create efficiencies and improve our city long-term. But we are committing to spending a significant amount of money. Trina?
Well, I think this is a good idea and, necessary. I'm just concerned we'll find out how much more we should be paying so many personnel and not have the ability to do so.
Finding out what they average make doesn't mean that fits in our budget. It just gives us a leg to stand on when we make decisions going ahead.
And I mean, it's also coupled with a structural study. So, I mean, maybe how we're structured now is more inefficient than paying the employees what we actually should be paying them. Or we can't foresee the outcome, and I don't want to guess on the outcome of it. I think there are efficiencies to be gained. I think there are wages that should increase, but I don't know that that's going to be a detracting thing. I don't know that that's going to be something we can't pay for. It may pay for itself and then some. I'm optimistic that the efficiencies that could potentially be gained in this would outweigh the salaries that we should consider increasing. I don't want to sway away from a study simply because we might find out that we should be paying a lot more money to some of our employees. I think it's good for us to know that we should be paying more money. I think it's good for us to know that there might be efficiencies to be gained. I think it's the best path forward for our city.
It's a benchmark more than anything. It's not telling us we have to do anything.
Yep, and Columbus is still a very unique community. Just because another community pays X amount doesn't mean Columbus should pay X amount. Sometimes we should pay more, sometimes we should pay less. It's a study to try and understand where our wages are at, where they perhaps should be, understand where our structure is, and how it could perhaps be more efficient. I don't know. Personally, I think we owe it to our constituents to be as efficient as possible, and so that we can provide as many services as possible within our budget constraints. And I think this is how we get there.
This is Michelle. Can I ask a few questions?
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
So representing Water and Light, I just have a few questions. Our structural setup right now is very strong. Our commission has been very committed over the last, a lot of them have been very long-term, which has allowed us for long-term planning, long-term funding for projects. We also, share with all the departments, our equipment, our staff. I'm just wondering where this study, because you said a lot of departments are exempt, but obviously Water and Light is not. So I just want to remind everybody, Water and Light is regulated by the Public Service Commission, so it goes under a whole different set of standards. We have a great set of staff. Like I said, we're structurally and financially sound and stable, and I think we're in the right direction. So I'm just a little bit concerned where this study might take us. What is the end goal that everyone is hoping to reach? Because I'm all about efficiencies. I'm all about partnerships. I'm all about all that. I'm not about more cost. I'm not about, we are significantly staffed right now. I don't say we're overstaffed, and I don't say we're understaffed. We're right there where we need to be. So I'm just a little concerned. Are we going to be adding more costs that aren't budgeted for? Is this necessary to go down this road? I'm all about the compensation study. I know a lot of companies do this every other year, and it's pretty much, since I've been there, hasn't been done, so I'm all for that. I guess I'm wondering, where is the council looking at the end goal? What is the end goal? Because we're already...
Well, Michelle, I think one thing that we have to consider is we don't have a specific end goal. That's part of the nature of this study, is for us to better understand where we're at currently and where more efficiencies could potentially be. You and I both know that Water and Light has helped out other departments frequently in the past. And perhaps there could be more efficiencies in doing that wouldn't be adding cost to you. It could be perhaps detracting cost from Water and Light. We don't know what we don't know is kind of what this study is about.
Fair. Thank you.
And anybody else have? I think, so for anybody like listening or watching, we aren't trying to completely restructure our government. We've witnessed where like Water and Light has helped other departments frequently in the past. And, a lot of times that was completely out of Water and Light. Should it be? Are there better ways to do things of that nature? I think it's prudent for us to discover it. Anybody else have anything to add or thoughts? well, it's a little more solemn than I wanted to end this one on, but I still think we're moving on the right path forward. And I mean, just because we're doing this study doesn't mean that we're intending to massively restructure our government. It's so that we better understand it and better understand where more efficiencies could potentially be. That doesn't mean that what the study comes of, that we're going to, take every recommendation or completely dissolve departments or anything crazy. It's a better understanding for now.
Thank you for that, Ian.
Thank you, Michelle, for your comments there. It's good to hear from the departments. I mean, and I want all of you to understand that we are doing this for your benefit and everyone's benefit. All right, next up, well, I suppose next up is to adjourn. Unless anybody else has anything more to add. All right, then I would take a motion to adjourn.
Reed would like to wish everyone happy holidays and make a motion to adjourn.
Motive, second.
Happy holidays.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you everyone so much and have a wonderful holiday, and I'll see you back on January 4th.
All right, thanks.